Anyway, I'm explaining how Liz Truss has had the worst ever start for any prime minister in the history of the United Kingdom. That's not an opinion. That is a matter of fact. Look at it. Now, when a new prime minister comes in, he or she inevitably gets a honeymoon, a bump in the poll, minus 10%. Not individually for the Conservative and Unionist Party. So Labour was 10 percentage points more popular than the Conservative Party. People asked about that typical question by the pollsters: if there were an election tomorrow, how would you vote? So anyway, it's only fallen since. I'm surprised the markets didn't price this in, because a few months ago it became blatant she was going to win the leadership of the Conservative Party. The bookies gave her a 95% chance of winning. Indeed, she did win, but not quite as by much as people anticipated. People said she was going to win by 20 percentage points. She won by 12. Is that going to help? Even people at the bottom are going to pay less tax, but it's going to have a time on the lowest paid. He's reversing that national insurance rise that Rishi Sunak introduced. Notably, national insurance is controlled by Westminster for the United Kingdom in its entirety. Most tax affairs are controlled by Westminster only for England, not Northern Ireland, not Scotland, not Wales. Right, so how are they going to bridge the gap? Because if you've got less revenue coming in, but the spending is the same, what are you going to do? They refuse to initiate cuts. They're not being ideologically consistent. Cameron and Clegg did at least pare back spending, but borrowing roughly £100 billion to try and keep people's fuel bills for a typical household below £2,500. Some people say this is highly irresponsible. The UK is already about 100% of GDP in terms of its national debt after. And the evidence that if you cut taxes, that leads to growth automatically is limited at best. Even if it is growth, it might not be enough growth. It might not be for quite some time, and so forth. It might have grown anyway. It was growing anyway. Will it accelerate growth that much? But last week, the Conservatives were 17 percentage points behind Labour. Labour just had their conference, and okay, that would give them a fillip in the polls a bit, because there's a lot of positive imagery of the Labour Party around. But an opinion poll today showed the Conservatives 33 percentage points behind Labour. That is shocking. There's been no such result for 3 decades. This takes us back to the era of the community charge, commonly called the poll tax, the thing that brought down Margaret Thatcher, when Conservative MPs got jittery because they thought they were facing not just electoral defeat, because all parties lose elections from time to time, but meltdown, that most of them would lose their seats. And so the Conservative Party will soon be at panic stations because the markets continue to go the wrong way. The pound has slid. I remember 2007 when it was $2 to the pound. It's now about $1 to the pound. This parity is unprecedented. The pound at its lowest level for is over half a century. Now, I know the pound can be too high, indeed was too high 10 years ago, but now it's too low. On the one hand, will that attract investors because it's very cheap to snap things up? More tourists, all right, more exports. But the United Kingdom is not that much of an export-led economy, but these exports sometimes rely on imports, certain components they need to put in, and so forth. So it's all very worrying, and it was somewhat predictable. Will things come right? Will it adjust itself? So Liz Truss has been a rather humiliating tour of the radio stations in the regions to try to explicate her policies, which seem to be cataclysmic. And I thought she's going to be Calamity Liz, but she's worse than I forecast. So she advanced the spurious hypothesis that this is all because of the Ukraine war. And it's true that the Ukraine war is having some impact on the United Kingdom's economy, but that's true of the whole world. Why is the UK so much worse off in the last fortnight than, say, France, Germany, the United States, any comparable advanced Western economy? What's the unique factor here? And that is that only the United Kingdom has had this sudden program of tax cuts and so forth. So she was appointed prime minister on it was the 6th of September, if memory serves, and so here we are, just over 3 weeks on, and it's going really badly for her. The Conservative Party conference begins in Birmingham next week. It'll be unhappy. The sky is just full of chickens coming home to roost. A rail strike this weekend into next week. The Railway, Maritime and Trade Transport Union deliberately disrupting the Conservative Party conference. Barristers on strike. that there may be some deal with them. Doctors, nurses, teachers, civil servants may well go on strike as well. What else? There's this cost of living crisis with the high oil and gas prices. Obviously, Russia deliberately sabotaging that undersea pipeline Nord Stream in the Baltic Sea to reduce gas supplies to Western Europe, to drive the prices yet higher, and so forth. So it's all very worrying. And Liz Truss is really there without a plan. And there's some sort of disconnect in her mind. There's something missing about her. And Keir Starmer, he is the man of the moment. His party is fairly united. His policies, he says, he's posed as a moderate, maybe not that much more moderate than Corbyn, actually. They began their conference by singing God Save the King to show they're patriotic, they're monarchist. That's reassuring to floating voters. People who are not necessarily Labour voters are open to persuasion. Sometimes vote Conservative, sometimes vote Liberal Democrat, because the median voter is a mild monarchist. Now, obviously, there are some anti-monarchists in the Labour Party. I don't think it's quite the majority opinion. Will Boris Johnson replace Liz Truss as Prime Minister? Well, you might have got his classical allusion, like Cincinnatus, I'm returning to my plough. Cincinnatus was, of course, called out of retirement to go back and be the dictator of Rome. So I don't think so. We really don't want him back. He's probably the only person more unpopular than Liz Truss. And how chaotic would that seem? There's been 4 Conservative Prime Ministers in 6 years. What, a 5th? Even if it's the same individual. So Liz Truss was penciling in an election for October 2023. Well, you can see how that would work out. So the election's got to be held by December 2024. So just over 2 years to go. But obviously the Conservatives, you can't win them all. Eventually Labour's going to win. They're not going to have a 5th defeat, I don't think. Some people think it'd be unhealthy through a democracy. So by December 2024, the Conservative Unionist Party will be in office for 14.5 years. And a lot of people will say it's a chance to give Labour a go. And the young have always favoured Labour, but they favour Labour very strongly indeed right now. So Liz Truss has got off to a uniquely bad start. Should she perform a volte-face? Well, if she wants to be Maggie Thatcher, she can't do that. The Iron Lady doesn't perform U-turns. U-turn if you want to. The lady's not for turning, as Margaret Thatcher famously told the Conservative Party conference in 1982. So that might restore confidence. On the other hand, would it show that Liz Truss has no idea what she's doing? There's no constancy. What the market's like is certainty. And they can be confident and there'll be continuity. They don't like volatility. And that might even be worse than changing course. I don't know. I've never studied economics. So anyway, thank you very much for watching my video. And if you'd like to support my work, you can do so in a number of different ways. So please press the like button for the video and subscribe. And that will improve my standing in YouTube and assist others in finding the channel. I also encourage you to donate via PayPal at georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Last of all, support me monthly on Patreon. So patreon.com/George from Ireland. As a subscriber on Patreon, you'll be able to access hundreds of podcast episodes and articles I produced down the years. The content was originally posted on other fora and soon will only be available via Patreon, and content is added daily. I shall also produce exclusive content that will not be posted anywhere else, and you will only be able to access it via Patreon. So join today and extract the max from this one-stop location for all these high-quality materials that I've been working to produce for decades. I know you will find it exceedingly valuable. Thank you oh so very much once again. Take care. Goodbye.